Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, and today I've got a very special episode. I've got two friends to the channel, and we are going to review the latest Rolling Stones album, Foreign Tongues. I've got Alan Niven. Welcome back to the channel. Also, I've got Alex Winter from the Contrarians. So, gentlemen, I will start off the conversation as a question without notice. What is your go-to album in the Rolling Stones catalog? So, Alan, what's your go-to Rolling Stones album?
Depending on the mood, it's one of three. And top of my list of three is Beggar's Banquet. My second go-to is Let It Bleed. And then to round it out, it's Sticky Fingers, which is an extraordinary run of three records. From my jaundiced and biased and prejudiced perceptions, very few people make one perfect record. So to make three in a row is pretty amazing, and to my thoughts, unequaled in rock and roll. That to me is absolutely the zenith of what the Rolling Stones meant to me. Now, other people may have different perspectives and points of view, but that is the heart of the matter for me, and it is endorsed by the board tapes that I got a hold of from 1973. And that, to me, is the Stones absolutely at their unquestioned best, live and performing these songs. 1973, just sublime.
Yeah, look, if I was in a time machine, I'd love to go back to that era because I agree with you completely. That is the golden era. Alex Winter, what is the go-to Stones album for you?
So, just meeting you, but my man Alan and I are almost simpatico. It's not Beggar's Banquet, but Sympathy for the Devil is one of my favorite songs and my top 5 songs of all time. My go-to is Let It Bleed. I think an absolute masterpiece. Sticky Fingers, and I go Goat's Head Soup. Those are the three that I can't live without.
Yep.
Yeah. Goat's Head was good. I'm interested because most of the people who are cognoscenti and know about these things tell us that the apex of the Rolling Stones is Exile on Main Street. And I tend to sit there and go, well, if they'd recorded it in Muscle Shoals, it might have been a better record. But there again, with Exiles, I can go to Ventilator Blues and then go away.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the moment for me on Exiles is Ventilator Blues, and I can drop a needle into that if I had a needle, and then lift it out afterwards and go, thank you, that was special.
Yeah. For me, I think Beggar's Banquet, Exile, which I absolutely adore, and that was a slow burn album for me. And I like Some Girls. I think that is a truly great album because that is the New York album. That is where they're just filtering all the influences of New York. And I love the groove rock. I love where they pick up a little bit of Latino music, a bit of world music, a bit of disco, a little bit of funk. I love that album a lot. So anyway, I think we all agree there's a bit of a celebration here, so let's keep this going. This album, Foreign Tongues. What were your expectations before hearing Foreign Tongues, Alan?
Not great.
Honest?
I mean, yeah, let's be realistic here. Mr. Philip Michael Jagger is purportedly 82 years old. So the first thing I'm thinking, because I'm a words man and a vocals man and a singer's man, as much as I love guitarists, the essence of a song always comes in the statement. So the first thing I'm thinking is, what's an 82-year-old man going to sound like So when I listened to the first track that I listened to, I was stunned, absolutely stunned, to a point where, being a cynical and suspicious person at times, my first question was, sounding that good? Have they been playing with his voice with AI? Because he sounds amazing, absolutely amazing. He hasn't sounded this good on a record in a long time. The vocals that hit me first were like, hello, what's going on here? This is exceptional.
Yeah. Alex, what about you? What were your expectations coming into this
Oh,
album?
so I mentioned my three favorite, and I also like Some Girls. I mean, I'm 68 to 81. That's my period that I adore.
Probably mine too. Yep.
And and then after that, I've kept up with the band, and especially in the '90s, say Steel Wheels On. I would sort of get excited that a new album was coming out. I would listen to it. I would like it. I would put it on the shelf, and I really wouldn't revisit it versus the tried and true stuff. So, uh, and then when we get to Bigger Bang, I wasn't even excited anymore. It was just okay. They're releasing music now. I will say this for them, and as we already mentioned about Mick and their age, they could rest on their laurels. They could just tour. They don't, they could be Kiss and not make new music, even though the fans want it. So kudos to the Rolling Stones for still wanting to make music. And if you're an uber fan, then you're going to eat it all up. Of new stuff. I'm just not there. So I tried Hackney Diamonds, and I didn't really get into it. And I don't know that I would have listened to this had you not said, "Hey, let's do this show." So my expectations weren't high, but I always give everything a fair shot, no matter who it is, no matter what it is. And that's what I did going into this. And so I was anxious to listen to it in the context of we're now going to have a conversation about this, but it's certainly not in the context of I've got to have it the day it comes out to own it for my library.
Yeah. Look, my expectations weren't hugely high because Hackney Diamonds, I was a little bit critical of. I didn't like the sound of it. Andrew Watt has got a very modern rock style of production where he does polish the edges. And to me, what I love about the Stones is their ragged glory. I love the looseness. I love the surprise factor of guitar strums between the melodies. I like the raggedness. To me, he was polishing it too much. And Hackney Diamonds didn't have Charlie Watt, and it was noticeable that his drumming was not on the album, or for most of the album. And to me, it sounded very processed. Andrew Watt is the wonder kid. He's done a lot of work. McCartney, Ozzy Osbourne with Patient Number 9, and there's a lot of AI trickery or auto-tuning and a lot of modern techniques. Hackney Diamonds had a fair amount of that, and to me, I think it was more of a Mick Jagger solo album than a guitar-orientated, ragged, dirty Rolling Stones album. So my expectations were not high in any shape or form. So there you go. That was the bar that was set for this album. So, Alan, going across to you, you told me you heard the first track, and that was Rough and Twisted. Maybe we can talk about some of the tracks that'll navigate our feelings in respect to the album. What was another song that you listened to and maybe were surprised, and we can take it from there?
Well, hold on. Let's stay with the first track, Rough and Twisted.
Okay.
As ridiculous as it sounds, there's the aspect of first impressions. It's kind of funny to be talking about a first impression of a band that's been around almost as long as I've been alive. And that caught me too. And you just hit one or two little things and got me straight away. The there was an energy in the track that felt that it had a live feel to it, and that was like, oh, hello. They're actually giving off some energy while they're putting these tracks down. This is good. And then there was the guitar tone and the riff. And I sat there and I went, this hasn't been sitting on a shelf for 40 years. This is probably something new. But they're definitely wanting to get back to something that's edgier. And there were a couple of, I can't help myself. When I'm listening to something, I'm going to pick that sucker apart. Okay. So when I was picking the first track apart, I was going, I'm not in love with the mix. For me to say I'm not in love with the mix also says I'm digging this, because immediately my brain is going, they didn't quite do it right, but I can hear exactly how it should be done. And for me, that track needed a little more air in it to define the guitars a little bit better. And at the end of it, I kind of sat there and I went, they're really working at being energetic and edgy and rambunctious. But this track just feels just a whisker too brash for me. I would love to have sat them down and said, what you got is good. You may be going with that, but let's try one more mix. Let's try and get a little air in there. And the other thing that you mentioned that stuck in my brain was, that's not Charlie on the kit.
Yeah, Steve Jordan. Steve Jordan.
Steve Jordan's great. But Charlie had this very particular way of playing in this band. And that particular way of playing in this band opened up space and air around certain things. And I missed Charlie on that track, because I'm listening to it and going, I think Charlie would have played that little section slightly differently. Yeah. But the one thing I was impressed by was, oh my God, I opened up the box and it's alive.
Yeah,
that surprised me. That surprised me.
Yeah. I think the thing about this track, and I will go through to you, Alex, shortly, is that I think I love this song, but Steve Jordan's drum sound is not quite where I would like it to be mixed. The cymbals are mixed much lower. The kick drum has a lower thump, and it's got this dry, punchy sound. It's a little bit processed. And Charlie Watt, he's one of the great hi-hat cymbal players, and it's just sorely missed. Alex, what do you think? Do you think the drums are a little bit, and I'll go back to you in a minute, Alan. What did you think?
So this is where being a extreme novice musician or singer, which I am neither, versus a professional listener, which is what I call myself, comes into play, because I don't pick a song apart that way. So that didn't resonate with me. I just kind of take everything face value. I want to go back on Andrew Watt and say he's a very talented guy. Not only as a producer, but a musician, but he comes from a pop world. And so one of my issues with much of his work with the Stones, maybe in Pearl Jam, is sort of that, as we've already established, polished sound and approach to something that should be raw and as unpolished as possible. And I also think that the fact that there are tons of guests and multiple engineers and tons of listed as studio personnel, whatever that is, there's something of too many cooks in the kitchen, right? And I think that again, polished is a great way to put it, that we're just getting a sound that I don't want from the Stones. And I'll go back to Exile. While I like that album, I don't love that album, but that's a rock and roll record, right? There's an energy and there's a vibe there. So having said all that, going into the first track, this to me, though, is a Stones rock and roll track. I think it has, to me, an early 70s vibe. There's a little grit. I love the harmonica from Mick. He drops an F-bomb. So we're getting, sort of the outlandish Stones. And Keith is the one who actually picked this. He wanted this to be the lead-off track. So I think it's a good starting track. It certainly has me encouraged to listen to what comes after it. So I'm not going to pick it apart music-wise. It's just, as far as the lead-off track, it certainly hasn't taken me out of the picture. I like how the album starts.
It's hooked you, so you're interested. Yeah.
Interested.
Alan, sorry, you were going to say something about the sound?
No, I was just agreeing with some of your comments that you both expressed very well in your own ways. But overall, that first track was a surprise.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
was definitely a surprise. And obviously, I'm cursed by my past. So I tend to listen to these things in a way that other people don't. And there's another aspect to it too, because there are certain things I will and won't do because I don't want to compromise my memories. Will I go and see the Rolling Stones now? No, I won't, because I don't want to compromise the memories of extraordinary evenings in the last century.
All right, I might put up another song for a bit of a discussion. The next song on the album, "In the Stars." I'll go to you, Alex. What do you think of this song?
So I like the groove of the music, and Ben Montantro on organ is always great. I'm not that big on the vocals. I'm certainly not big on the chorus and the woo in the background. This is where Watt and his pop sensibilities, I think, take over from the Stones' rock nature. So, as much as I like the start, the second song I was definitely not feeling, and I just didn't think it's certainly not the Stones that I want to hear. Let's say that.
Wow. Well, I think this is one of their best songs in years. I loved it. I thought it had a hooky chorus. It kind of reminded me of the Brian Jones era, the later part of the Brian Jones era. The verse is classic Stones guitar. You know, you've got the loose guitar, slightly behind the beat, subtle accents, full of swagger. And, Steve Jordan's drumming on this track has lots of feel, groove, and dynamics. What I like about this, and it hit me here, was that it's a song looking back, but at the same time, it's sounding a bit modern and fresh. So, Alan, we've got two different opinions on this song. Where did this hit you, this song?
Well, once I came out of the first song, I thought, oh, did they just get lucky on one? The next one up is going to be critical, because that's where you go, oh, we're back to being disappointed by Rolling Stones records again, or you're going to be going, oh, something's going on here. And for me, it was, nah, something's going on here. I like Jagger's read in that vocal. It was a sort of relaxed, laconic, old Jaggerism to his delivery that I really like. And the content of the song, because content for me is a heavy weight. There are songs that people love that I cannot abide because they're so inane. We could go through the AC/DC catalogue after they changed their singer. But I was very pleasantly surprised by the second song up, and it was a statement that I could follow to the end. And of course, when you're listening to somebody like Jagger, you're trying to get a sense of what's he telling me and why. I mean, he's Mick freaking Jagger. What kind of a social life does he live? Is he always riding around alone in the back of a limousine chasing some 25-year-old? Tell me, Mick. Tell me about your life a little bit. And in this song, he does.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a little bit of romantic optimism in there. And having read interviews where some of his children have complained about how he chases their friends around,
the Peter Pan.
Yes.
Yeah. Now
There was a little bit. I think the quickest way to say this is, I could feel a little bit of Jagger there. He was revealing a little bit. He was telling me something about what his life is and what he's thinking. And
Yeah.
I can go with that
Yeah.
because there's a big bar that I don't think they get over. But we can maybe talk about that later.
Yeah. Now, this album's got a lot of guest stars. You've got Paul McCartney, you've got Bruno Mars, and you've got a guy called Robert Smith from The Cure. And the song is Divine Intervention. So I'll just share this. Mick Jagger goes, I turned up one day to do my vocals in London, and there's this bloke standing there with his back to me with this long gown on. And when he turned around, he was covered in lipstick. And I said, I've never met him before. You're Robert Smith of The Cure, he said. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, while you're here, you better go and do something. And there he goes. He plays guitar on Divine Intervention. What do you think of this song, Alex?
So I'm probably going to be outnumbered again, but I don't know that I like this song. First of all, I love The Cure and Robert Smith, but if you didn't tell me he was on there, I wouldn't know that. I think it's a classic Stones groove to start. I like the guitar riff. I like the beat, the bass. Mick comes in. Again, I really, as Alan said, he's lyrics and vocals. I'm that way too. I really have to connect with the vocals first. And much of what Mick does over his career, I do like, but it doesn't work for me here. I think the chorus is okay. The high note that Mick hits, I don't really care for. That's what it takes me out of the song. So again, to me, this is very commercial sounding, and that would play into the producer. So far of the three we've talked about, two are not to my favor, and this is one of those.
Yeah, I like Mick doing the falsetto, and maybe I'm outnumbered here, but I really enjoyed him bringing back the falsetto. And, I think this song's got...
When was the last time you heard it? Waiting on a Friend?
Emotional Rescue.
Emotional Rescue.
Yeah, he did a couple in the early 80s, but I like how he wheels that out. Alan, do you like the falsetto?
Oh, it's Mick, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's what he does. He's not afraid to go out there and wobble a little bit around his note at a high pitch, because Mick was always very good at focusing in on attitude. So for me, the Stones were never about precision. They were always about attitude. And that's an interesting topic too, because how does that attitude relate to a contemporary context? We can get into that later. One of my questions is, who would I recommend this record to? To my kids? Yeah, maybe. No, because I'd take them back to Beggars and Sticky and Bleed.
Yep.
So that left me going, is this a record just for me? For my memories? Is this a record just to go, fucking Jagger, 82, and he still pulls it off?
Yeah, that's an interesting analogy. But with these guest stars, Alan, do you, when I was listening to it, and I think Alex said an interesting point, when you're listening to it blindly without looking at the liner notes and finding who's playing who, you didn't notice it. I know that...
I didn't.
Yeah.
I sat through a Jagger interview trying to do some homework, and he was talking about all the people who came in and out, including the guy from The Cure. And I went, am I referencing the right record here? I didn't notice any of these people.
Yeah. So it's a marketing tool, isn't it? It's a little bit of credo, like, this is our album, but we've got some friends. So
you tell me neither of you picked up that was Bruno Mars on Cowbell? I mean, how did you not know that? Wasn't that evident?
Well, and Bruno Mars will take that cowbell and use it in one of his songs. He's very good at that sort of thing. There's an interesting observation floating around that Some people are referring to this as the last new Rolling Stones record. And given their ages, that wouldn't surprise me. So if I were in the studio and we're doing this for the last time, I can see with all of their confidence and past, they'd have an attitude of, let's not get tight about this. Let's have some fun. And if anybody walks through the door, the fact that you walk through the door means that you've got to go and do something. Play a cowbell. Stamp your feet. You're doing percussion here, whatever. I think that would be the vibe and the attitude. That anybody who turns up, go and do something. Get on there.
Yep. One of the guest stars that I have to put a shout out that I do love, and he plays some really tasty piano, is Steve Winwood, and Never Wanna Lose You. Alex, did you like this song?
First of all, I love Steve Winwood, and I love Steve Winwood on this album for sure. That's the standout to me. I mean, would I say, listen to it and say that's Steve Winwood? Probably not. But when you listen to just the plain, I think he's first of all, I have an affinity for Rhodes and the B3 and all that stuff. So just what he adds to this, I think is great. So for this song, I do like it. It starts with kind of a disco vibe. When Steve Winwood kicks in, I mean, I'm hooked. I think this now is where Watt mixes classic Stones and his modern touch in the right way. I think it is a nice blend, a nice meeting of both of those styles. I love the energized vocals by Mick. I love the high-pitched screaming at the end. This is, sort of going back to Sympathy for the Devil, this manic singing from him. So, yeah, to me, this is a standout. I really like this track.
Yeah, I think this is New York R&B, 70s New York R&B. The bass, I think it's Daryl. He's on the bass, and he's in lockstep with the drums. And the snare has this really sharp crack that gives it the song energy. It's got a danceable groove. This reminded me of Some Girls, and Steve Winwood, his playing is great. The chorus is hooky, melodic. I Never Want to Use You. Maybe the vocals, Alan, are a little bit processed because Mick sounds great on this song. Really, really good.
Yeah.
Steve Winwood. There.
Steve Winwood. I tried to love Traffic, and the playing was good, and it was hash music. You'd sit and smoke hash and listen to it to get into it. His Spencer Davis period is stunning. But here's a little thing about Steve Winwood that you might or might not know. He has a lovely house out in the Cotswolds. And there's this really nice little pub down the road. And Steve likes to go and have a few bevies down in the pub. Here's what most people would be surprised to see. He rides a donkey down to the pub, and the donkey waits for him and then lets him fall over his back and ride up to the house after he's done, because Steve likes to stay there well past DUI limits. So if you're ever in the Cotswolds and you see a geezer on a donkey heading for a pub, odds are it's Steve.
That's why we've got you on the show, Alan. We didn't know that, did we, Alex?
Did not know that.
But what do you think of this song, Alan? Do you think Jagger's vocals, top notch, aren't they?
I think Jagger's vocals on the entire record, all that I've listened to, are perplexing even. Because there's a part of me that goes, 82 years old? How does he sound so good? It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. You know
I used to have when it was something that you had to think about, I would ponder the idea of when does it become uninspired and lacking in the spirit to go out on tour, and at what age, and when is it just being done for the money, and when has artistry devolved into mere entertainment? When does that happen? So I formulated this theory that the only people who should go out on tour after the age of 40 were genuine, legendary black blues players or Pink Floyd. But I have to say, I am absolutely amazed at how Jagger sounds on this record.
Yep. Alan, were you a fan of the albums, the Stones albums, where Jagger went into Americana and country music? Because one of the songs I want to cover next is Ringing Hollow. And this is a song that has country influences.
Do you know the greatest record that's never been compiled and put together?
Compilation of the Stones.
Rolling Stones country songs.
Yeah.
At a dinner party, if I wanted to tweak somebody who was, maybe a bit opinionated about this or that, I'd ask the question, who has the best country band? Who has the best country rock band? And I'd get the Pocos and the Eagles and this and that, and I go, no, you're wrong. The best country band that I can name is the Rolling Stones. And the fact that there isn't a Rolling Stones country record absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah, I've had many conversations with various panelists, and there's a school of thought that a lot of their country songs are what we call, in the English, a bit of a piss take. And to me, I think there is sincerity. He's paying homage, and he's really in it. And Ringing Hollow, to me, just reminds me of that great period of the early 70s where there was guaranteed one track of country, and it was just right in the pocket. Did you like this song, Ringing Hollow?
Absolutely not a piss take. I disagree with that entirely, because Keith, now I've got to remember the guy's name, they burnt his body out in the Mojave Desert. He was a friend of Emmylou Harris, Graham Parsons. Okay? Keith and Graham spent a lot of time together at a time when Keith could get medical cocaine. And it was Graham Parsons who got Keith genuinely immersed in the feel and the structure of country songs, and why good country songs are powerful and meaningful and incredibly blue-collar rural too. Any decent rock and roll band should never lose sight of the fact that your main audience is blue-collar. Don't get too far away from that. Remember that. You're the voice of the disenfranchised.
Yeah. Alex, did you like this song?
Love the song. And so I'm the sole American on this panel, right? And this absolutely speaks to me. First of all, I already said Let It Bleed is my favorite Stones album. So the country side of the Stones, love. And
Country honk. Country honk. You can't say that's a piss take. I love that. I love it maybe more than the Honky Tonk Women itself. Country honk has just got the most amazing vibe and feel to it.
Yeah, well, there is a school. There is a school of thought, and I don't get it. But to me, I think it's as authentic as anything. It's serious homage. Anyway, sorry, Alex.
No. Oh, no, you're good. So, and again, as Alan has said, vocals and lyrics, right? So we have the lyrics, Lady Liberty don't look so good when she's wearing a frown. Lady Liberty is not looking too well. She's got another crack in her bell. And this is coming from guys from England. They're talking about America because America is a part of them. They feel America. They understand what America should be, and it won't go off in a political tangent. But for them to put this song out now, with everything that's going on, and sort of showing their uneasiness and not understanding what is going on or why it's going on, and showing a little bit in a very kind of melancholic song. I mean, this isn't an aggressive song, but the lyrics really convey the message of, you guys need to get your act together, because this is not right, and this is not the America that we have known for all these years and toured. And I guess Keith lives here or spends enough time here. So to me, this is a song that is very, very powerful, but delivered in a way that really makes you sit and listen to what Mick is telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Alex. But I'd be a little bit of a spoiler and remind you that, let's go back to Street Fighting Man. Now, that was inspired by the riots in '68 in Paris. But there was, my youngest son looks at me and goes, "You're a leftover hippie. What the hell were the hippies about?" And I said, well, for me, it was a repudiation of the cynical and compromised and hypocritical authoritarianism that we saw in the world at that time. And remember, that's 2 years later, we have Kent State with students being shot on their campus by National Guardsmen. I'm glad Mick says something. I'm glad Mick is not so rich and going to so many great dinner parties, that he does notice that we need to make comment about things that we find unacceptable. It's one of the reasons why I think rock and roll is being dismantled, is because the powers that be do not want artists being contrary to the behavior and the idiocies of those who are in government. I was down a rabbit hole watching something about Alan Dulles last night, who was the first head of the CIA, and he was on the board of United Fruit. And in Guatemala, they were going to add a little tax to the bananas, to the Americans, so that they could improve the infrastructure of Guatemala. Alan Dulles goes into Eisenhower and says, "The commies are coming." So Dulles is given free rein to remove the president of Guatemala and put in a puppet. These are the people that have been the enemies of rock and roll, and these are the people that we should be commenting on still. And for Mick at 82 to still be making a comment about Trump or anyone is utterly valid, because that keeps him an artist and prevents him from becoming just an entertainer.
I mean, they got fire in the belly.
Yes.
I think their lyric writing is really fertile, because, you get to that age, and that's the criticism with a lot of later artists putting albums. They're just rehashing the same thing. But this album, to me, especially lyrically and thematically, it's fertile.
Yes.
Jake he's a smart cookie. There's sharp lyrics all the way through this album.
He was London School of Economics,
Yes, he was. Yes,
and
he was.
And he did not retire from the London School of Economics until there were, I think, at least 2 contracts that had come up that showed that they were going to make money. And even then, he thought he might be going back, because in those days, a band would last for, 6 months or maybe a year, maybe 2 years. I mean, that's the other extraordinary thing. You can go back and you can see interviews with the Stones way back in '62 and '63 going, well, it's good for now, isn't it? We're having a good time.
Yeah.
Will we be playing when we're 40? Nah, not going to happen.
Who would have known?
Yeah.
But on this song, Ringing Hollow, to me, I just get the feeling that Keith and Mick are united. I mean, they're like the warring Clampets. You know, they have their fights. Probably the Nadir was dirty work where they were just like polar opposite. But I feel like they're really together on this album. And this song, they're just like, we're brothers. And,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All that time together. As an illustration of that,
Yep.
Keith Richards took Slash out for a dinner and was up and down him and sideways across him that he could not leave his band. And Slash looked at him and said, "But Keith, you don't know what I'm dealing with." And Keith looked at him and said, "Really, mate? You should try living with fucking Jagger."
Oh, I never get tired of hearing that one. Can we talk about the Amy Winehouse cover? Now, I'll come straight off the bat. I don't think this quite works because I think the original was a bit of a torch song. It had a little bit of a slower tempo. It was kind of an emotional one. I think Amy Winehouse to me was like lightning in a bottle talent. And the way they covered this song, it kind of rushes it. It loses a bit of the drama. It feels a bit hurried. Alex, what did you think of this version of the song? I think this is a slight misstep.
As we've had enough shows together, and already said it's good that we can agree to disagree, but do it in a peaceful way. And my first reaction when I heard that they were going to do this was no, no, no. And that's a bad Amy Winehouse joke. But then I heard it. And my first listen, I said, that's not so bad. And the more I listened to it, the more I really like it. And in the context of, I now hear it as, and it was hard to separate because that's an iconic song. I now hear it, though, when it plays as a Stones song and not as an Amy Winehouse song. And there's, great baritone sax. That's one guy we didn't mention, James King from Fits in the Tantrum, is all over this album as well. So I like it. I like the way they changed it up. Could this have been just a B-side because it's a cover tune? Sure. But in the context of it being on this album, actually one of my favorite tracks.
That's why I have you on the show. Love it. Alan, what did you think of this version?
Well, I'm slightly at a disadvantage because I stopped drinking 7 years ago. And this to me is a track that I think that if I was halfway through my bottle of vodka, I'd be fine with it. The vast majority of my records, my connection to them and my love of them would develop and grow over a period that I'd hear different aspects or different vibes in something that I didn't necessarily pick up on when I first bought it. So there are songs that, like I said, halfway through a bottle of vodka in 6 months' time, that's a track that's going to work for me because if I'm playing the album, I'm connected to it and I go for the ride. Or I hope to go for the ride. That's the other thing about a new Stones record. Will you go for the ride? Will you start at A and come out at Z?
Yeah. One of the criticisms with the last album was that it was a very vocal-centric album. It was more geared to the pop market, a bit more the vocals. But this album, what I've read with a lot of the critiques is that it goes back to the guitar-centric sound of the Stones. And one of the tracks that I want to talk about, Hit Me in the Head, this is like garage rock. It's snarly, it's spiky. And you actually have Charlie Watts on, I think, one of his very last performances. And you can hear it just pops out of the speaker. The drum sound, it's just got that classic Charlie Watts sound. What do you think of this song, Alex?
in my notes, I put high energy, right? Mick and full
Mm.
swagger, great guitar, great harmonica. Shortest song on the album, under 3 minutes. So I think it's a great foot tapping, head nodding track. They sort of get in, they get out, they do their thing. So unlike the length of the album, because the one thing we need to talk about is the length. I think this is too long. So in that context, this is a short song, and to me, there's nothing not to like about it. I like it as a great Stones track.
Yeah, that's a criticism with that I've read about this album. It is too long. I think it runs just under an hour, 56 minutes, if you don't count the bonus track.
It's
Alan,
actually it's 62 minutes.
62. Okay,
It's
sorry, got
14
that
and
wrong.
62. Yeah, so it's just over an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Alan,
you said a mouthful there, Alex, because again, it's my personal, ancient, prejudiced point of view. But I think an album should be, 8 songs. Side A, side B. That's an album. I love the fact that when CDs came out, I didn't have to get up out of my seat or walk away from the table and flip the disc. And that's great. But I've never changed my viewpoint that an album shouldn't be more than what would have been on vinyl, that it shouldn't be more than about 40 minutes. That's it. That's concentration. That's enough. We have a thing here in America called the TED Talks, where somebody will get in front of an audience and discuss a topic of conversation, and they're limited to 17 minutes. And they're limited to 17 minutes because the people who run the TED Talks have decided that that is the most that you can ask somebody to listen, concentrate, and absorb, that you have to stop after 17 minutes and give it a break. 17 minutes, side A. 17 minutes, side B. And the worst of the CD generation was people packing on 70 to 75 minutes of material, because we can, and because we can get the songs for free from the band. No, I want to hear an art form. I want to hear somebody take an idea and express it and then stop. I mean, Desperado, for me, for example, is the only perfect Eagles record. But they have an idea and a content and a spirit to it that is consistent all the way through, tells a story, and then it stops. And if you want to hear it again, you press start again. But you don't add, let's put 3 bonus tracks on the end. No, that becomes abuse.
yeah.
That becomes abusing the listener. So, how many songs are on here? 14?
14.
Yeah. It's
now,
a bit of a
too
stretch.
long. You didn't get me through all 14 songs, but you got me through almost an album, and that surprised me.
Yeah. Well, that's a big criticism, and I've always said from day one, I've got a limited attention span, and I think 40 minutes for an album is just fine because I was brought up in the vinyl age, and I think when it went over to CDs, it just went nuts because there's just so much filler. Well, back to Foreign Tongues. One thing I want to say is we've praised Mick Jagger's singing, but I love the guitar work and the interplay between Keith and Ronnie. Ronnie plays some tasty, delicious slide guitar, and Keith, I saw an interview on YouTube promoting the album, and he said the thing that makes the Stones so special to him is the air. You need air, man. Air between the notes. And I've been listening to this album on the headphones. It's a great headphones album, and there's lots of space between the notes. And I just love his angular playing. He just comes in, maybe it's off the beat, and then he dives out. He comes in, he dives out. He's still got it. it's just magic. Is that something that you notice, Alan? The guitar work was just
Yeah,
top notch
absolutely.
stones.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd heard some comments about Keith maybe not being totally present at live shows. And there were whispers going around, he's getting on, they turn him down at certain points. So to hear what he was playing on this record was a real nice pleasure.
Yeah, I think they're engaged. You can hear
Yeah.
if a performer, even on an album in the studio, the final product, if they're not engaged or not. And I think they're totally engaged. Is that something you picked up, Alex? That they seem to be engaged in the material?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, my criticism are just how I hear things, and I like a song, I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah,
The musicianship, the camaraderie, and Watt is a fan of the band, so this is for all of that. And I mentioned this before, for them to still want to put out new music. I love all of that, but definitely this is. You can tell that the band is absolutely having fun. They want to do this. They don't. Maybe there's even a need to do this because they still have this music in them. So that I think maybe is the best aspect, and something that I don't know that I heard on Hackney Diamonds, and maybe I'm crazy, but I just think this sounds more like everybody is fully into this project.
yeah. I agree. One thing I want to talk about is the last song on the album is "Beautiful Delilah," which is an energetic cover of a Chuck Berry, and to me, it kind of bookends because the first song is "Rough and Twisted," which goes back to the old Chicago blues. It's really garagey, rough and ready, and they finish with a song which is kind of a similar. It's rough and ready. It's a bit of a raver, and what's in between is kind of varied. So it's interesting how they've done the track listing. They've bookended it from, this is the old Stones. Alan, did you like the last song of the album, that the old Chuck Berry, a bit rough and ready?
I always like when Keith is rough and ready. That's the essence of him. I don't think that I can really think of a Stones record that is throttled by precision. I mean, all of them somewhere have got that sense of this is loose. My interest is, how many takes did you do on these? How much rehearsal did you do? And are we listening to basically band live on a lot of these things? Because that was the feel I got, that it was band live, minimal overdubs. Let's play as much as we can.
Yeah, and I think Jagger is a sharp cookie because he would have taken notice of the criticism of Hackney Diamonds that it was too overly processed. So I think he would have sat down with Andrew Watt. It would have been a very in the table and just said, look, this is what we need to do, and we need to make it more organic.
Yeah.
Alex, did you notice kind of interesting track listing was kind of bookend?
Yeah,
Beautiful
and I will
Delilah.
speak on what you were both saying, and here's a quote from Mick. He described this as a bulldozer approach. He said that they wanted to record the ideas while the excitement is still there, but everyone has time. It doesn't have time to overthink them. So I think that's sort of what we're saying is what he said. But yeah, not only do I like it as a bookend, and again, I'm a blues guy. I love that. I love rock blues. And we mentioned the guitar playing on this, but also mixed vocals on this, right? There's a grit in it. There's that down and dirty Mick that I like. And I think what's most interesting is they did this song in 1964. There's BBC recordings of it. What a difference when you listen to these two. I mean, you're hearing the Stones sort of in 64 doing this, forging a path, finding a direction, wondering where they're going to go. What's this? And now you hear it and they're like, we're the Stones. This is us. This is where we came from. So, and much like they did, right, they ended Hackney Diamonds with a Muddy Waters song too. So, but yeah, the start and end of this, and I'm always a big sequencing guy too. So there's some stuff in the middle that maybe we could have cut out, but the beginning and the end to me, it's impactful. That's the Stones that I like.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I think Mick would have had the attitude, "We're going to kick your ass on the way in, and by the way, on the way out, we'll kick it again."
Mm, got it.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, been a great discussion. Why don't we get your final thoughts on the album? So, Alan, what's your final thoughts on Foreign Tongues?
Surprised, absolutely surprised, because I was not expecting something that was going to connect with my inner teenager, my inner child, my inner rock and roller, my inner anti-authoritarian. Because that's what the Stones represented to me in a big way when I was a kid too, was question everything, question everyone, because most of them deserve it. And Mick had a very powerful period through the three albums that I mentioned earlier in his social observations and his attitudes. And they're still as valid today as when he formed them in 67, 68, 69.
Excellent. And Alex, what's your final views of this album?
I mean, I kind of echo what Alan just said. And again, I go back to Sympathy for the Devil being one of my favorite songs. And if that isn't Mick, at the top of his game and his lyrical content. So, but on this album, I'm glad we did this exercise. I did enjoy it. There's a lot of songs I really like. But my big thing is I go back to what I said early on with new Stones. And when I say new Stones, I'm talking 85 up. How many times will I revisit this? I'm not going to, if I want Stones and I see this and let it bleed, it's an easy decision. So again, kudos to them for still wanting to make music. I enjoyed it. But, and even as a Stones fan, I'm just not going to revisit it that often.
Well, I disagree. I think this album is some of their finest work since Tattoo You. I really, really dig it.
That's
I,
that I exactly agree with. That was a thought in my mind before we all met up, that for
yeah,
me, this is the best record since Tattoo You. And of course, Tattoo You is an interesting record because basically Chris Kimsey put that record together. It wasn't much of a band construction. Chris was the one who got out old tapes and said, "Let's fix this one up," and Chris formulated that record. So this is, in certain respects, better than Tattoo You. But don't we get "Start Me Up" from Tattoo You?
yeah, we do, and that's one of their top-notch songs in my
That's
top five.
live forever. And there was one moment, and it was perhaps a little cheeky, perhaps a little bit of a dig, but there was in "Got That Look," there was a lyric line in there that I would have maybe tried to have the courage to suggest changing. And I would have taken that lyric and said, "The kind that makes an old man humble,"
Yeah.
which, given he's 82, would have definitely made me smile.
I think this is an album, it's heartfelt. I think it's looking back, but without getting too sort of sentimental. It's got a modern touch, but at the same time, it's old. There's a paradox, but I just found it an enjoyable listen. And for most part, I think all the songs, they just burst out of the speakers. To
Yeah.
me, it sounds like classic Rolling Stones. Mick's voice sounds and top notch. Keith and Ronnie loved their work, and I liked it. And look, boy, oh boy, I was surprised too. They're just putting quality stuff when, frankly, most bands are just doing the retirement fund and mining their careers on one or two albums. They just keep on pushing the boundaries. They keep on keeping on.
The I think the simplistic blush I have with it was that if I still drank, or if I still drove over the speed limit, it would be in the truck, and I would hear it more than once. I'd play through it quite a few times. I think I'd form a relationship with it.
Yeah, I
I'll
think
tell
so
you what,
too.
Alan. I'll make up for you. I'll drink and I'll drive the truck. I'll do what you're not going to do.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex.
But not at the same time. Not at the same time. Separate times. Drinking and
Yeah.
driving.
Yeah, look, I think some of the latest Stone albums, like A Bigger Bang, Hackney Diamonds, I played it, I reviewed it, it went back in the cabinet, but this is going to be on high rotation in the Kerr household. So, gentlemen, this was fantastic. Thank you. Kudos. Alan Niven, friend to the channel. We'll get you back again. I'll find something. I want to get you back. Alex, as always, great having you on the channel.
Thank you. Pleasure.
I'll put the links.
Alex, a pleasure to meet you. I hope our paths cross again. I'd be fascinated to know what you've got over your left and right shoulder. I could have you walk around that room and pull out records, and we could probably talk for a while.
I'd love to do that.
That could be a show idea. Alan will just throw a top. Have you got this album? And you go back and just pick it out. Yeah. He's probably got it.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. Peter, always a pleasure.
Absolute. Rock Daydream Nation, folks. Catch it, like and subscribe, put your comments, and we'll catch you soon. All the best.